Welcome to the best addiction education you will ever get. I apologize for the simplicity of this presentation. This isn't a fancy production by any means. Obviously, low budget. I am not here to entertain or cater to any attention spans. I'm here to teach. You get talk and slides. I wish I could do more, but Simply Sober is only a one-man show with a job, wife, 2 young children, house, and 2 vehicles to take care of. Before I get into more about me, my credentials and all that, first let me tell you why you are here. One of the biggest and most detrimental misconceptions about addiction treatment and all its many forms, because that's the go-to remedy for almost everyone, right? Go to treatment, get them to treatment, is that licensed addiction drug counselors are not educated about addiction. I'm sorry, they're just not. Counselors are social workers. In many states, that's the only degree they hold, a degree in social work, maybe with an emphasis on working with people who have addictions. And according to the scope of the job, knowledge about addiction is not required or taught. And the same goes for all the doctors, along with therapists, psychiatrists, and even pastors involved in recovery. Before anyone gets offended and clicks off, this isn't a bashing session. I hold the highest regard for these people, but I'm teaching you something right now, so listen up. It's not their fault. Much like in most institutions that train people to do the legwork for any particular industry, they are taught just enough to think they know something about it. And everyone else who goes to them for help just assumes they are experts on the topic. Even the basics they are taught are not quite on point, but it looks and sounds good enough. And then they are quickly thrown into a pool of social work resourcing, motivational interviewing, group leading, and proper paperwork. And all that can be very necessary and very helpful. The counselor, and most in the field of recovery from addiction, can parrot the given definitions and descriptions for the terms and symptoms of addiction. They can help you with resources and coping strategies to manage the addiction. But they cannot tell you how to get rid of it. You would need to understand addiction to do that, and then be allowed to do so within the outlined scope of practice. There are boundaries. Don't believe me? Okay. Riddle me this. When an addict enters recovery, they will hear the term cravings more than a lot. It's endlessly talked about. Cravings this, cravings that. It's often defined, described, and strategized for how to deal with them when they arise. They're kind of a big deal. Okay, how do you get rid of them? If you are a professional in the field of addiction recovery and someone who wants to heal sits in front of you and says, "My biggest trigger is cravings. I've tried treatment a couple of times. I've learned and applied ways to cope and manage them, but they always come back. I can't go on living with these cravings. I need to know exactly what they are and how I can get rid of them for good with no drugs because I'm trying to get off drugs." If you are a professional and cannot take 5 or 10 minutes and verbalize the answer to someone, you might want to keep watching and listening. You can get rid of them, gone, without any special drugs, treatment, or worship. Simple 8th grade health class level physiology, natural practices. Nothing special, other than knowing how a human was designed and how that design was subverted. Something like this is basic and should be the first day of treatment, lesson 1 stuff. But instead of teaching an addict something like this, they are taught how to manage or be managed. There's a big difference between fixing something, reversing something, restoring something, and managing the symptoms of something as it continues. This is not okay. To pour salt on the wound, an addict can undergo a month or 3 or 12 of intensive treatment, upwards to 30 grand plus worth of treatment, where they live in the treatment center and do nothing but eat, sleep, and shit treatment. And when they get out and are asked what they've learned, they most likely shrug their shoulders and say, "Take my pills, go to my meetings, praise Jesus." And when they slip, they are told that they just didn't do it right, that they just aren't ready and need to hit another bottom. They must need to suffer some more before they want it bad enough to get it. This type of nonsense, all coming from their friends, family, counselors, and doctors. People who can't even teach them the basics of something like how to get rid of something as simple as cravings. Are you kidding me? It's no wonder why the addict is hopeless. You will soon find it's not that the addict is hopeless, they are helpless. As far as what's provided at treatment, everyone already knows addiction doesn't care about your housing. It doesn't care if you had some structure to your day. It doesn't care about your job, how many meetings you go to, whether or not you've been taking your crazy pills, or what religion you subscribe to. It doesn't care how much you've strategized or your coping skills. It doesn't care about the level of trauma you've experienced, how much you've participated in your therapy sessions. The addiction seems to be immune to all of it. You can keep throwing whatever you got at it, but it apparently remains and can only be managed, right? All those things the recovery industry provides, it doesn't care. By the recovery industry's own statistics, nothing they are providing works past a year or two. But keep coming back. It works if you work it. While the ongoing average number of treatments an addict graduates from before it sticks, or they just give up, or they die, is 7. While each time an addict attends these rehabs, the definition of insanity plays on a non-stop loop in the background. Folks, everyone likes to talk about the addiction problem, but nobody wants to talk about the problem with recovery. But of course, you first need to admit there's a problem. There is no school for what I teach. And although it's mostly 8th grade health class level knowledge, conceptualized and applied, it remains outside of their scope of practice because it was not taught to them under curriculum. And therefore, licensing, which they all must adhere to, or face losing their career, will not allow it to be spoken about unless they get some type of certification that might allow them to speak on 1 or 2 points, one paint stroke of the big picture, for liability purposes. But why? Why is it this way? You will see I am going to be explaining a lot of the whys, and here's the first one. This is an example of how knowing why something is the way it is helps you grasp what's really going on. This why is about an industry, but the following courses will be about the addict, the problem, and the restoration. So why is it set up this way? The same reason everything else with big industry is set up to be a long, confusing, difficult, and ineffective process. But at the same time, making it look like a lot is being done, while incessantly repeating to everyone that it's working, when everyone can see plain as day that the problem remains and often gets worse. Money. Continuous funds. If something ain't right, if something isn't making sense with an industry, simply follow the money. In 2023, the NIH received $1.85 billion in funding for one department. The Addiction and Drug Abuse Department, just that one. Apparently they have been getting this big money and funding for research for addiction for the past 50 years. It will most definitely be up to $2 billion in 2024. I hope the problem gets better someday. Don't get me started on the mental health department. But there are other players who make a killing off addiction. The industrial prison complex, the industrial military complex, the CIA and FBI, along with the cartels, the pharmaceutical companies, all the hospitals, all the treatment centers, dope dealers, bars and entertainment, and whole divisions of law enforcement. They all get crap tons of money, as long as there's a never-ending stream of addicts who are not taught about their problem. No industry wants drug addiction to go away. The employees who work in the industry do, the people trying to help do, but who writes their textbooks? Who decides their educational curriculum? Who dictates the policies? Who decides what they can bill insurance for? Or whoever else? But it does need to be made to look like they are doing something about it. How is this accomplished? Scope of practice. You see, everything is connected, especially when it comes to recovery, health, human design, and healing. A physician cannot break down nutrition and supplements or any psychology. A psychology cannot speak on spiritual warfare. A counselor isn't allowed to explain the neurology behind recovery, and so on. And this is a great example. If you look online for what neurology is, it will tell you it's a branch of medicine that deals with the nervous system and blah, blah, blah. Right off the bat, neurology is not a branch of medicine, it's a branch of science. But for some reason, it's the only ology that is strictly labeled as medical science, as if their findings are only used for medicine. But I don't want to get off track. In addiction and recovery, the nervous system is something someone who teaches another how to recover and stay sober should be speaking on in overflow. But they can't. It's outside of their scope. They get a chapter about it in a textbook in college. Maybe. For an addict to learn about how to fix and mend the neurological aspects, they would need to wait 8 months for an appointment with a neurologist, have the right questions to ask, and have a good enough knowledge base to determine if any information they receive is even useful. And that is, if the neuropathologist even gives them the time of day, because they only get paid if they can diagnose and treat you. What I am saying is that you can't just book an appointment with a neuroscientist to pick their brain on anything other than a billable treatment. This isn't spending too much time on this topic. This is the reality. This is just how it is. I'm not blaming anyone. It is the nature of industry driven by profit. I didn't say the workers have the same intention. That is why you are here. And that is why I am invoking the spirit of anonymity. Did I say that right? Anonymity. You know what I'm talking about. Most don't know what that even means, let alone pronounce it. In this context, it means you can attack the following information all you want, but it's difficult to attack the truth. And when that happens, they attack the person who is delivering the message. Like I said, there is no school for what I teach. There is no licensing or accreditation by any institution. I have no conventional credentials to enchant you with. You are simply going to need to experience the information and judge for yourself. So here's my disclaimer. I am not acting in the capacity of any medical profession. There is no medical advice here. These courses are designed to provide information, ideas, and motivation to its audience. It is received with the understanding that the presenter is not engaged to render any type of psychological, legal, medical, or any other kind of professional advice. The content of each article is the sole expression and opinion of the author. No warranties or guarantees are expressed or implied. The author shall not be liable for any physical, psychological, emotional, financial, or commercial damages, including, but not limited to, special, incidental, consequential, or other damages. You are responsible for your own choices, actions, and results. With all that said, over the next number of segments, I will be explaining in depth 4 concepts that will sound enigmatic at first. Alcoholics are not physiologically addicted to the substance alcohol, and of course, how understanding this helps alcoholics and addicts to recover, how this knowledge can be applied. Addicts do not crave their drug of choice, and of course, why understanding how cravings work is key. The obsession of the addict is not for their drug use, plus application. And while there are many ways to get sober, some call this recovery, I don't, there is only one way to stay sober, joyous, and free, and what those words mean in this context. I will not be selling you anything at any time through this course or any course. No special subscriptions or supplements or books or anything. I take that back. I will be mentioning some books I wrote. Not because I want them to be #1 bestsellers. I am no author, and the writing style I used back when I wrote them is highly experimental. They just have good complementary information to what I'm talking about. But like I was saying, this is free. Although, if you find any value in these courses, donations would be greatly appreciated. This stuff took years to put together. But why would I do that? Why would I give this away for free? And for one, nobody's going to pay for this information like at a traditional store. It's not super fun stuff. And two, I can't think of any company who would promote it. But the real reason why is that I don't have a choice. Without getting into the hoodoo of it all, I'm just going to say I have a duty to share. Hopefully you can read between the lines on that one. The whys are important. They are what most of these courses are about. You are going to probably hear me say many familiar things. You will hear familiar terms, catchphrases, and concepts. Please refrain from fast-forwarding. Most often, if you hear something familiar, it's because I'm about to flip it upside down. You will miss some golden details. It's not like studying for an exam where you can just highlight the key terms and memorize the definitions. That's what the professionals did to get their holy degrees. It's all integrated. What I share builds on itself. And to understand what I am teaching in one part, you will need the foundation from a previous part, or it will sound like gibberish and your brain will reject it. Okay, we are not getting started quite yet. Hang in there, everyone. I only have 2 more things to prime your learning mind with before I get into the good stuff. Please be patient and pay attention. I said the whys are important, and here's why. A metaphor of treatment. Imagine, or think back to when you started a brand new job. During the training for that job, you were told what to do and how to do it. And for the first 6 months to a year, you pretty much suck at that job. You don't start rocking your new job. It doesn't start to click until you begin to understand why you were told what to do and how to do it. Until then, you're making mistakes, cutting corners, forgetting things that need to be done, and thinking stuff can just be skipped until it bites you in the ass later. There's a big difference between mistakes on the job and mistakes in recovery. I don't think I need to explain that part any further. Now, some might say, this isn't the right way. You can't just tell them how to do everything. You need to let them figure it out for themselves. It's the journey. How narcissistic of you. Trust me, there will be plenty of journey left. I'm just trying to get people to the starting line. I'm going to tell you everything you've never been told about addiction and recovery. And when I say everything, I mean everything. I'm going to overwhelm you with information and logic. But it's only overwhelming because it's a new spin on what you've already been told. It will contradict your current perspectives and therefore cause some cognitive dissonance. An alternative perspective triggering emotional discomfort because it contradicts an installed belief. Now, to dull this effect, we need to erase your psychic chalkboard. I need you to forget everything you think you know about alcoholism, addiction, and recovery. I don't care how many sponsees you have, how long you've been a counselor, or how great your office is, or how loud that little voice in your head is saying, "Who does this guy think he is?" Be teachable. If one is to assimilate anything new, the walls need to come down. And quite frankly, this is already going to be a long enough course, and I don't want to use any more catapults of over-explanation to break these walls down for you than is necessary. I'm not pompous. I've just wasted too much time talking circles around these types of people with nothing more than 8th grade level health class logic. Okay, interaction time. Time for you to exercise that big old brain muscle. I want you to close your eyes, relax a little, breathe a little, visualize a little, and walk up into your mental mansion. If you do not already have a mental mansion, now is as good a time as any to create one. It can be anything. Doesn't need to be a mansion. It could be your childhood home, dream home, one you build right now. It doesn't need to be fully architected and detailed with decorations quite yet. Just walk up to the front door, open it, walk down the hallway, and start to look for a room with a door labeled Files. Go on into that room, go to the filing cabinets, find and open the drawer labeled Alcoholism and Addiction. Locate the file labeled Stuff My Friends Told Me, pull it out, don't open it, bring it over to the window. If you don't have a window in that room, create one. Now open the window and chuck that file out. Do the same with the files labeled what my friends told me, what my teachers taught me, what the counselors told me, what my shrink told me, what I read online, what that documentary said, all of it. Get rid of it. If you don't know very much about addiction and maybe only have a whiteboard with the phrase alcoholism is a disease written on it in marker, go ahead and wipe it clean. I'm seriously not trying to be cute. We really do need those files deleted before we proceed because they will most likely just get in the way. I'll give you a minute to clean up, and then I will begin explaining the answers to questions you didn't even know existed.